Welcome back to Honda Garage, Idaho. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at my 2011 CRZ, installing the accessory door sills that go on the frame here by the doors. Now, these are super cool. They have a neat little carbon fiber texture to them, and in addition to the 10 or so horsepower per side that they provide once installed, they actually also have an illumination feature, so this logo will light up, and that's actually a safety feature to prevent you from, say, opening the door in the dark and accidentally breaking your ankle trying to get in your vehicle. Too bad, so sad. That's what this is designed to prevent. So in today's video, we're going to look at the process of installing these physically and wiring them up, looking at a couple different options depending on whether yours came with the factory wiring harness or not. So let's dive in and see how it goes. Okay, so I picked up my factory sills used from a Japanese parts auction. And a secret benefit to that actually is that the one on the physical passenger side of my US vehicle is the driver's side and the JDM one. So that one actually is used and worn a lot more, which means the one that I'm putting on my driver's side is actually going to look cleaner and less used. Pretty cool. So I purchased these, they're factory, they're used, but they did come with the OEM accessory wiring harness. This is going to make the installation super easy. Plug and play with the wiring that's under the dash next to the fuse box. So let's get started on the physical installation and prep work that's needed to get the sills on the doorway. Now these door sills are super low profile and thin. They actually mount to the door with double-sided tape so they can still fit in the gap between the door trim and the frame here. Mine came with some of the factory original double-sided tape. Obviously they've already been used, so this has been kind of pulled apart and ripped. I ended up scraping and cleaning off as much of that as possible and getting rid of some of the residue with rubbing alcohol, and then installing some new strips of 3M extra wide double-sided tape. I've already got that installed here. As you can see, this is going to be a great large surface area to apply this on. But first we need to do a little bit of prep work on the door seals right here, the rubber, and obviously make sure everything is super clean so we have a good surface for that tape to attach to permanently. To be able to access the wiring and everything underneath the dash here, we're going to have to take off these under trim panels in both sides of the vehicle, as well as this trim on the corner of the footwell. To take this one off, ignore the missing glove box, that's not required, but this front panel pops in with 4 of these metal retaining tabs, so we just pull each of those down with pressure. Don't forget to disconnect your footwell light if you have it, and then you can just pull this out of the way. For the one on the driver's side, we've got this twist lock here, and then a plastic retaining tab that we can just pull down with some force there to pop that out. And then just like the passenger side, it pulls away from the firewall. After this, we can go to each side of the car and pull up the rubber weather stripping that seals around the side of the door. Once that's pulled away, then we can take the plastic trim out. That's just held in with a couple of push clips on the metal in the footwells, and then some little clips where it meets the next piece of plastic. So we'll just pop all those out and remove these trim pieces. We use some more rubbing alcohol here to clean off the panels where this adhesive is going to attach and just make sure it's completely free of any dust and grime. With those out of the way, we can line up the side sills, and I'm following the factory instruction manual for adding these here, and I'll have that link below if you want to use it. But according to those instructions, we're going to line the top edge of the sills with the edge of the next plastic panel that stays on the door frame. Once we get those lined up and have the sills positioned where we want them, we can use some masking tape to mark where those sills need to stay, as well as where the wire is going to cross into the vehicle. We're going to mark that on the rubber seal because we actually need to cut and modify a little bit of that seal to pass the wire through without damage. Once we have those locations marked, we're going to look on the flat wall side of this seal here that's got that thin little line seam, and we're actually going to cut a rectangular opening in here. Inside are some metal clamps that run throughout the entire seal and keep it clamped onto the door frame. And so where the wire passes through, we're actually going to remove 3 of those clamps, one basically centered over the wire and then one on either side. And that'll make sure our seal has enough flexibility to not pinch and destroy that wire against the frame of the door, and it'll let it pass through no problem while maintaining the seal for the weather and everything outside. I ended up cutting my openings a little bit too large, but once you have those open, you can just kind of pry the metal of the tabs down, and once it's flat, just wiggling it back and forth will eventually slide it out from that seal. It does take a decent amount of force. Do try to be careful not to stab yourself or anything in the process. The last thing we need to do before we actually install the sills is put a little bit of tape over the metal frame to protect the wires from that sharp edge. If you happen to buy this as a Honda accessory when it was new, there's tape included. I'm just going to use typical electrical tape, And there's a small spot on the door frame where this metal kind of pops outward a little bit, and there's a small gap. And the tape is going to go right in front of that if you've lined up these sills the way the factory manual specifies. So I'm just going to put 2 layers of electrical tape down there to protect the wires from that sharp edge, and then we can install the sills. One last thing to check is to make sure that the wiring is tucked in this little channel underneath, just so it doesn't get in the way of the sills sticking down completely. Okay, with everything prepped and the metal surface all clean, we can remove the protective layer from our double-sided tape and install the sills. We'll just hold them down on here for a while to make sure that tape really gets a good grip. Highly advisable to do this in warm weather or in a heated shop of some type, just to make sure that adhesive actually sticks well. And once that is on there, then we're going to take the wires and pass them over that part of the metal frame with the tape and put a couple extra layers of tape on top as well, just to keep the wire safely tucked right up against the metal there. Now for where this harness plugs in, let's take a look under the dash. Even though this was made for a Japanese CRZ, even with my fuse box on the other side, we actually have the same exact plug on my USDM CRZ. So this connector right here that has 10 total spots in it, even though they're not all filled up, that's the one that we are going to be replacing with the end that's on our harness right here. So we're going to unplug my factory one out of the fuse box, plug this one in its place, and then the connector that we remove here is going to plug into the other end of our harness from the Japanese lights. So I've pulled the electrical tape off of my harness temporarily just to see exactly how everything works in case you're building your own. And of course, for the lights on either side, all we need to do is provide a ground and a 12-volt positive wire. Now on this connection here, the pink wire is going to be our ground and the white is going to be our positive. That's going to go for both lights. So looking at our stock connector that goes into the fuse box here, and I'm going to put the part number on the screen for this plug and the pins if you are going to make your own harness because you don't have a stock one. This pink wire here that is closest to the blank side, I guess, or the side that there's no wires connected, that's going to be the wire we use for our ground. Now, of course, for ground, you don't have to use one out of the factory harness. You could just run it to a ring terminal on the chassis with a bolt existing in the frame or something, a clean metal connection for ground. But on our factory OEM harness, that's what we're using. So our ground wire comes out of that pink and it goes here. All of the ground wires are connected inside here to each other. So there's the ground from this plug, it continues to ground over here, and it sends a ground to each of these as well for the lights. The white wire, as I said, is our positive power, our 12-volt power, and you could use a fuse tap of the like if you wanted to pull power instead of using the factory connections. Some sort of tap like this, getting power from an accessory fuse, that would also work just fine. And you would run that to the wire that's in the position of the white wire on these plugs. But if you are wanting to build a factory style harness, or you have a factory one that's damaged, we get our power wire, these white wires, they come to this little accessory fuse holder right here for a single fuse, and then that gets its 12-volt power from this pink wire here, which on our harness that plugs into the fuse box is on the opposite side. So this pink wire on the top of the screen is the ground. This pink wire down here in the other position is where our 12-volt positive comes from. And so that 12-volt positive goes to our fuse holder, and then it continues out to the other piggyback plug here. So that's how we get our 12-volt power in the OEM harness to our plugs for the sill lights. And obviously these other wires that are in here just kind of carry what's in the first plug through to the second one, so all the factory stuff still works just fine. But that's how we're set up, so I'm going to retape this and then we can go ahead and get it installed. Now I will say, if you want a factory-like functionality, I'd strongly recommend buying those connectors to build your own harness if the ones you pick up don't come with any. And the reason is that those are on a special circuit that will provide 12-volt power when the doors are opened, and then after around 30 seconds or so, they'll dim and turn off. If you go the other route and just hook it straight up to an accessory fuse or something like that, they may not work as you expect. They won't open with the doors, but they'll either be on all the time, which could drain your battery, or they'll only be on when the key's in the ignition, so you won't see them light up when you step in anyway. So I definitely recommend building a T-harness to plug into the fuse box just like the OEM one does, or at least using a T-tap of some type to splice in and pull 12-volt power out of that second pink wire I showed if you want them to operate with the doors only. So with our wiring harness ready, we're going to start at the fuse box and unplug the main green connector here by just pushing down on the locking tab in the middle. Then we can reinsert our new harness in the same spot in the fuse box. and plug the last two connectors on the outside to complete the connection. Make sure you listen for those connectors to lock together so you know they're secure. Then we can feed our wiring from the driver's side sill around the existing factory harness and get that connected, and we'll obviously zip tie all this stuff to keep everything tucked away nice and tidy so we can't snag it. Finally, we'll take the long side of the harness and route that to the passenger side of the vehicle. I'm going to go from under my dash here over the top of the steering column and route it through the center, kind of right next to the heater box. And it does help to have the glove box out just so I can show you where this is going, but it shouldn't be hard to get to if you have the glove box in. We're just going to route it kind of along these factory harnesses and zip tie it down along the way. Same thing with dropping it down and around the blower fan harness here. You can see I've already got some other aftermarket wiring installed there as well. And finally over to the corner of the footwell where we can plug it into the harness on this side. With that done, we can reinstall the trimmer on the footwell areas that we took off earlier, as well as the rubber door seals. Make sure that that spot that we gave some extra room for the wire actually sits over where the wires are at. And that's about it. So there we have it, our factory sills installed. They look awesome. I'm super happy with it. And now I'm going to head out to my tuner and make sure we're all dialed in for the extra 20 HP. So if you've got other OEM accessories you've installed, let me know how that turned out. But for now, that's all I've got for this video. I hope everything I showed today was helpful for you. And until the next video, thank you so much for watching.